A few years ago, I stepped into a family owned multifamily portfolio that was technically working, but financially limping along. The asset value was over $26 million. It had only produced $47,000 in cash flow the year prior. The scary part wasn't only how low that number was, it was that everyone had slowly accepted it as normal. 6 months after I took over, that same portfolio had produced $555,000 for the year. This is a full operational turnaround, and most of it came down to undoing the well-intentioned but expensive mistakes. The first thing I realized was that this portfolio wasn't really being managed like a business. It was being managed like a family heirloom. Everyone cared, everyone had opinions, and nobody had clear accountability. There were 8 different owners, all but one with minority stakes. And the decisions were effectively being made by how they've done things in the past, not necessarily based on what actually worked. That lack of clarity bled into everything: staffing, spending, capital projects, and even basic contracts. So before touching rents or renovations, the first thing that had to change was how the decisions were made. One of the hardest but most important decisions was this: we stopped managing the properties ourselves. We had in-house employees, long-standing relationships, and a lot of emotional attachment to doing it internally. But what we didn't have was performance, systems, or real accountability. So I made the call to bring in a vetted third-party property management company. That single decision alone changed the trajectory of the portfolio. Suddenly, there were weekly reports, standardized processes, real benchmarks, and someone whose job depended on the properties performing. It went from personal to professional. Next, we took a hard look at where the money was going, and this one surprised a lot of people. The portfolio had been spending heavily on top-tier capital improvements, the kind of upgrades designed to last 30 years. On the surface, that sounds responsible, but in practice, it meant we were pouring huge amounts of capital into a small number of projects while the dozens of other issues went untouched. We changed the mindset completely. Instead of buying the absolute best solution, we focused on good, durable work with a 7 to 10 year lifespan. That allowed us to stretch the capital further, fix more problems, and improve more units at the same time. The goal wasn't perfection, it was profitability. At the same time, I thought how we would approach deferred maintenance. I didn't ignore it, and I didn't become reckless, but I stopped treating deferred maintenance like a moral crusade where every dollar had to go toward fixing the past. Instead, we started prioritizing spending that actually increased rental income: exterior improvements, unit turns, first impressions, the kind of upgrades that directly impacted what a tenant was willing to pay. Deferred maintenance became something that was handled as needed, not something that we used as an excuse to burn capital without seeing returns. As the cash flow increased, it became easier to address the remaining issues. One of the most impactful changes had nothing to do with the buildings themselves. We simplified leadership. Rather than trying to get a buy-in from every minority owner on every decision, I took a high-level direction from one person: the majority owner, the one with the most authority. That clarity alone sped up the decisions, reduced friction, and removed a massive amount of emotional drag from the process. Another lesson that showed up quickly was this: paying cheap almost always costs more. For years, the portfolio had prioritized low bids and bare minimum labor. The result was rework, delays, and constant frustration. I flipped that approach and started paying people well for the quality of work. Employees stepped up, better contractors showed up, and jobs got done right the first time. And then the problem stopped reoccurring. It wasn't about spending more, it was about spending intelligently. And finally, the lesson I wish I learned earlier than all the others: I stopped taking people at their word. Instead, I started reading every contract, every management agreement, every vendor scope, every termination clause. Because if something isn't written down, it doesn't exist. And if you don't read it, you're agreeing to things that you didn't intend to. When all of those changes came together, the results were unavoidable. The same properties, the same locations, the same market. But cash flow increased from $47,000 a year to $555,000 a year. Not because we worked harder, but because we worked with more clarity and more strategically. Family-owned portfolios don't usually fail because of the market. They fail because no one wants to make the uncomfortable decisions. If this felt uncomfortably familiar, then you're part way to solving the problem. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit the subscribe button and let me know in the comments below what you've done to turn around a real estate property.